Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Xony, and today we're going to have some more stories from Reddit. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further, let's go. Now let's get into today's stories to find out what happened. My wife and I had been together for 20 years before we ended our marriage. We met when we were both in high school. I had just moved into the area and I didn't know anybody in town. She was always very friendly to me, and I immediately took a liking to her. She was sweet and kind, and most importantly, she had the same relationship with God as me. I'd always dreamed of becoming a pastor, so after college, we weighed the options. We eventually decided it wasn't feasible at the time, so we got jobs. After about 5 years, I reached a certain point where I was deeply unhappy with my work and I needed change. My wife stood by me while I got an associate's degree in theology. After that, I threw myself into studying everything there was to know about Christianity, and I did everything I needed to become a pastor. We opened our own church, and after a while our congregation grew. I couldn't have done any of it without the help of my wife. She was my rock through all of it, and I still have so much love for her because of that. Religion has always been important to both of us, and I know a lot of people assume that closed-door activities can be a little bit bland. I will comment briefly on that. It wasn't for us. We were a married couple and nothing we did behind closed doors that we were both fully consenting to was sinful in any way. That being said, the only thing that had ever been brought up that I didn't think was right was bringing another person into the bedroom. The problem started for us when a new family moved into town. We met them when they stopped by the church to ask about baptizing their son. My wife and I wanted to make sure they were happy in the community, so we gave them all the information about the church and told them to come to the following Sunday sermon. We were happy to see them there and we introduced them to the rest of the people in our town. At the end of it, we invited them over for dinner so we could get to know them a little bit better. They came over later that night and we had a great time with them. They kept coming back on Sundays to see us. I was happy that we had some new members for the church, and I was also happy to see that they were integrating with the community well through it. My wife ran a weekly community service group that didn't have very many volunteers. She would have some around major holidays like Christmas or Easter, but throughout the rest of the year, it was normally just her and maybe 1 or 2 other people. One day my wife came home from her community service and happily told me that the new couple had joined the group. I was excited by the news. Over the following months we spent more and more time with them and they became close friends of ours. We saw them regularly for dinners and we even hung out with them outside of the church for double dates and things like that. My wife was the only woman that I had ever been with, and as far as I was aware, she had never broken the bonds of our marriage. I had no idea what to look out for as far as cheating went. I know now that she was acting strangely for a while, but at the time nothing stood up to me. One of the biggest indicators that I missed was how she started volunteering on extra days during the week. The entire time we were in the church, she would always volunteer on Thursdays. Suddenly she was volunteering on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and the occasional Saturday. I was always very busy maintaining the church and planning sermons, so I wasn't always able to help her with the service. I first noticed that something was off when she was making her announcements on Sunday and mentioned her Thursday community service group. I had been under the assumption that the Tuesday and Saturday groups were the same thing. I didn't understand why she didn't mention the extra days, especially if that might open up the door for other members to volunteer. When I approached the altar to give my sermon, I added an addendum to what she said, telling them about the additional days. When the sermon was over, she seemed to be irritated with me. I asked her about what was wrong and she told me that I undermined her by correcting her in front of everybody and embarrassed her. On top of that, she told me that they weren't doing the Tuesday and Saturday volunteer days that week. I apologized and told her that I never meant to embarrass her. However, I went to my office and I saw that on our shared calendar she had Tuesday marked off for volunteering. Her story wasn't quite adding up to me. I started to think that there was something off, though I didn't know what exactly it could have been. Infidelity never crossed my mind. Part of me assumed she had some kind of guilty pleasure that she was participating in that she didn't want me to know about. I didn't like that she was keeping something a secret from me, but we had been married for so long and we knew everything about each other that I felt she might have been entitled to have something to herself. I found out the truth of the matter when I decided to join her in her community service group. It was the week before Easter Sunday, so I already knew my sermon like the back of my hand. That Tuesday blocked off on her calendar for volunteering, so I decided that I would join her in the spare time that I had. When I went to join her in the recreation room of the church, nobody was there. I texted her and asked her about where they were because I planned on joining them, but I never got a response. That was unlike her, so I was immediately worried about her. I thought that she might have gone home, so I made my way there and saw that her car was in the driveway. Instantly I was relieved. I figured that nobody showed up to volunteer with her, so she must have canceled it. I walked inside and heard some very strange noises coming from the basement. We had a partially finished basement with one room that was being remodeled into a guest bedroom for my mother to come and live with us. With the thudding noises, I thought that she might have been down there assembling some furniture or doing some work now that she was free. I put my things down and went downstairs to help her. Instead of finding her in the middle of remodeling the basement, I saw her having relations with the new couple. Both of them. I was in complete shock. It was the last thing I ever expected to see my wife in the middle of. They saw me and immediately stopped what they were doing. My wife approached me trying to explain what was happening, but I was so shaken by everything that I could hardly hear what she was saying. I walked upstairs and into my bedroom, locking the door behind me. It was a lot to process. I thought she was the love of my life. I trusted her more than anybody else in the world, and I gave everything I had to her. In turn, she broke the vow of our marriage. She was banging on the door and trying to get in because she thought I was hurting myself when I was really just sitting on the bed. Eventually, she had the man from the couple break down the door. I was practically catatonic. I never got angry. I've always been very calm and collected, but seeing them all there staring at me like they were concerned about me filled me with such a fury that I was shaking. I yelled at all three of them, and I told them that they needed to leave. After I collected myself, I reached out to a divorce attorney and I explained that I saw my wife cheating on me. Unfortunately, they recognized my name and they knew my wife. I wanted to keep everything a secret, but I didn't think it was going to be possible. My wife begged me to forgive her and give her a second chance, telling me that it was the godly thing to do. I didn't have it in me to do that. I told her that we were over and that I was going to be divorcing her so she should get an attorney herself. Easter Sunday was very difficult because we wanted to be perceived as normal as possible because of what the holiday meant to everyone in attendance. It was difficult to put a smile on my face and be around her. The following Sunday my wife did not give the opening announcements as she always did after the music. I could see that there were some confused faces in the congregation. I didn't want to share the news with them, but I wanted them to hear it from me rather than from everybody else in town. I explained that my wife and I were getting divorced due to my infidelity. The rest of the sermon was dedicated to my wife and the couple that she was having an affair with. It was about infidelity and how sinful it was to break a sacred marriage vow. In hindsight, it might have been a little bit bitter, but it was where my heart was at the time. I divorced my wife, the attorney that I worked with was exceptional, and they made sure I was well taken care of. I didn't make a lot of money as a pastor, so they made sure I did not have to pay anything in spousal support to my wife. I was able to keep the house, and I moved my mother in a few weeks after the divorce was finalized. My wife is almost treated like a pariah in town. I have very conflicting emotions about this because she hurt me and a part of me thinks that she deserves this, but another part doesn't think that anybody should harbor hate in their hearts. The couple that she was having an affair with has been outcast from most of the town after what they did. Rumors spread and I don't think they were able to clear anything up. Now I am focusing on my church and rebuilding my life without my wife present. It's actually very strange how many of the women in the congregation have been reaching out to me and asking me if there was anything they could do for me. Some of them are single women, divorced, widows, etc. I can tell that they're coming on to me in some ways, but I don't know if I'm ready to be in another relationship yet. Now let's get into the second story. My girlfriend and I have been dating for about 18 months. It's not the longest relationship I know, but it was very toxic. She and I met at a nightclub in New York on New Year's Eve. She was by far the hottest girl in the room, and from what I could tell, she was there without a date. I saw a bunch of men going up to her and shooting their shots, and I figured I didn't have anything to lose by trying myself. I went up to her and made a couple of jokes that she was very receptive to. I ended up buying her a drink and we shared our first kiss at midnight. The first few months of our relationship were incredibly passionate. There was something about her that I found out. Almost intoxicating. She was like a bit of a drug to me, and I couldn't spend enough time with her. After our honeymoon phase was over, she started getting very cold with me. It seemed like she was trying to pull away from the relationship, but I really didn't want that to happen. I invited her over for dinner one night, and I opened up the floor to talk to her. I told her about how much I liked her, and how I didn't know what was wrong with the relationship, but I wanted to work on it. She was honest and vulnerable with me, which I really appreciated. She told me that at certain points in relationships, she just got really nervous, and she would pull away from them before she put her heart up there to get hurt. I assured her that she was my dream girl, and I had absolutely no intention of fumbling her. After that conversation, things started looking up for us again. Over the next 6 months, we repeated that pattern 3 or 4 times. It was pretty exhausting, but we worked through it every time. At the time, I looked at that rocky relationship and thought that we only made it through those tough times because we had such a strong bond. I know now that it was entirely unhealthy and we should have just ended things after the first time. In the month leading up to our breakup, we had another low point. I was very exhausted with how everything was going. I have never been with somebody who was so hot and cold all the time, and I didn't know how much longer I was going to be able to handle it. It felt like every time I started to distance myself from the relationship, she would step in and do everything in her power to keep me there. For context, my girlfriend was an aspiring influencer. If for some reason you don't know what that means, it means that she was pretty much unemployed. But she had a couple of brand deals that helped her pay her rent. Whenever we would go out, I would foot the bill for dinner or concert tickets and things like that. I was also raised in a way that the man always pays for the dates, but that's a whole other thing. We were having a really low point in a relationship, and she was making it clear to me that she wanted us to move in together. I was very confused about why she wanted to move in together if we were on the verge of breaking up. She told me that she thought if we lived together, it might make it easier for us to work through some of the issues we had. That made absolutely no sense to me, so I told her that I didn't want to move in with her until I knew we had a better foundation than we did. She was upset by that and she stormed away from me, and I hadn't spoken to her for about 4 days. It was reaching a point where I thought that she was just ghosting me. It sucked to think about it, but there was a part of me that was happy that it was over. She finally reached back up to me and told me that she wanted to get together to talk. I was fully preparing myself for a breakup when she came over to my apartment. Instead, she was honest with me and she told me that she wasn't able to pay for her rent because of an increase the landlord enacted. She didn't want to have to move back home with her parents. So she wanted to live with me. I was apprehensive about it at first. I didn't want her to be living with me just because she thought I was going to pay her bills. I explained that to her, and we came to an agreement that she would just crash with me until she was on her feet. There was no legal binding, and there was the option to kick her out should something happen with us, and we break up. I was really glad that I decided not to officially move in with her. Just a few weeks after that happened, things really hit the fan with us. She had been working on her Instagram and TikTok following very hard. The more followers she had, the more brand deals she got, the more money she earned. She was following a lot of people and messaging a lot of other people with large follower bases and creating content almost non-stop. It was working for her too. She was getting a decent amount of followers, and she was really getting up there. She had a couple of other brand offerings coming through, and she was excited about all the prospects. One day, I took a half day from work because of a conference I needed to attend very early the following day. I was home, just chilling on the couch playing some games when she walked in the door. She was wearing a men's t-shirt that I knew for a fact wasn't mine, and I had never seen her wearing it before. I asked her about it and she told me that it was just an old shirt that she had. Something about it didn't check out to me. Of course, I didn't know her entire wardrobe, but she wasn't the type of person to walk around in an old oversized t-shirt with a couple of holes in the bottom of it. If she told me she borrowed a friend's t-shirt, I wouldn't have thought twice about it, but I knew she was lying about it being her t-shirt. I didn't use social media a lot. I thought it was exhausting and most of the people who were using it all the time were very rapid, my girlfriend included, but after I saw that I decided that I should take a look at it to see what was going on. Eventually, through her tagged photos on Instagram, I saw that she was with another man who was wearing the t-shirt she walked in with. Why would she walk into my apartment wearing the same t-shirt that another man was wearing the day before? I had my suspicions about her sleeping with someone else. I looked at the other guy's social media and saw that he had a lot of followers, not in the millions or anything but a decent amount. He was on a dating show and that's how he got semi-famous. I put two and two together and I was already under the assumption that they were having an affair. I just needed some kind of confirmation that that was the case. I figured if the evidence was anywhere, it was in her Instagram messages. She got in the shower and right away I looked through her laptop to see what I could find. Of course, she had her Instagram already logged in, so I didn't have to do anything. I found her messages with a guy from the dating show and I thought they were very flirty. She messaged him first and said something about how she wanted to hang out with him if they were ever in New York. He responded to the message, and they were very sexual with each other, leading up to it. Whenever she would post a picture of herself, he would reply to it, and send her eye emojis and things like that. Their most recent messages had them meeting up for drinks at his hotel bar. He'd flown into the city for a photo shoot, and he wanted to meet her. The fact that it was at his hotel bar told me all that I needed to know. There wasn't a doubt in my mind that they had been intimate with each other. I took a couple of screen grabs of the messages, and I sent them to myself as quickly as I could while she was still in the shower. I made sure there were dates included in pictures to prove things. From the look of it, it seemed like the guy had somewhat of a relationship with someone I figured was a fellow cast member. Now I was aware that it could have been a publicity thing. I don't watch reality television, but if they wound up together, I'm sure a lot of fans of the show would probably love seeing them together after the fact. My girlfriend got out of the shower to find me in my bedroom packing up her belongings. She asked me about what I was doing and I told her that I knew about everything and I wanted her to get out of my apartment. I wasn't going to have a cheater crashing with me. She tried to yell at me for invading her privacy, but I didn't care. She was a liar and that was all that mattered. When she realized I wasn't going to budge, she packed up the rest of her belongings and got out. Her only other friend in the area was engaged, and from what I understand, she didn't want her staying at her apartment because she lived there with her fiancé. I couldn't blame her for being nervous about that. I kicked my girlfriend out, but I was thinking about everything for a couple of days, figuring out things that I could do. I decided that I wanted to call her out on social media. She was using me and she lied to me and then cheated on me with someone who could help her get a leg up in the industry. I created a post on Instagram and I put it on my story. I reached out to the woman from the dating show who seemed to be in a relationship with the other guy and sent her everything. I commented on their videos and posts, trying to gain traction for it. Eventually, it took off and the rumors started spreading. People were on my girlfriend's Instagram account calling her a homewrecker alongside a myriad of other names a lot worse than that. I felt kind of bad that she was getting verbally attacked, but it wasn't really my problem. When my girlfriend found out that I was the one who posted that video, she was very upset with me. She told me that she didn't think I would ever do something like that to her, and she said she never wanted to talk to me again. As if that was her decision to begin with. The couple from the dating show both broke up and the woman actually went on a couple of podcasts and talked about everything. I didn't listen to them, but I had some friends share the information with me. People on the internet really hated the guy after everything because apparently he was already kind of a jerk on the show. About a year and a half removed from that situation and I'm ready to move on from it. I'm a little more wary about people and relationships I'm going into now.